The law of diminishing returns is a principle in economics that teaches us beyond a certain optimal point, the more input you apply to any system. Usually we're referring to economics, but I'm teaching you how to use it in your life. The less output you will receive. This is the reason why you've been sending follow-up phone call after follow-up phone call for that job you want, or the calls to the friends or the people that you thought were really interested, or the text regarding an event or an opportunity or somewhere you're supposed to be or somebody you're supposed to be with or some job you're supposed to have because you know you're supposed to be there, or in some meeting you've explained yourself 3 times but nobody asked your opinion, and you keep going and you're going and you're going and you're giving more to jobs that they really shouldn't have of you. You're giving more than what's required or appreciated. And you bring value everywhere to everybody but receive nothing. You're feeling empty. And you've done this so many times that you've lost count. And somehow the outcome that you've been expecting isn't getting better. It's actually getting worse. I want to tell you something. You can stop this today. The hard truth is that you have become the problem that you are probably trying to solve. Let's talk about this law of diminishing returns for those of us who didn't take this course in economics. What it means is that once you push anything past a certain point in productivity, you don't just stop gaining, you begin actively destroying the things that you have already built. Now, economists use it to describe things like production lines and agriculture. But experience has taught me, after over 2 decades of working with and teaching healthcare professionals, this also applies to your relationships, to your professional reputation, to your jobs, to your money, to every outcome that you are gripping too tightly. There is a statistic I'd like to share with you. Psychologists have determined through research that external pressure and control consistently undermines intrinsic motivation in others. What does this mean? Okay, this means that the harder you push someone toward an outcome that you find favorable, that you want them to receive, the less internally motivated they become to give it to you. For example, the more you try to demand people work overtime, the less interested they actually become in getting it. And you're hollering about the money, the bigger the paycheck that they'll take home, they do not care. You are pushing them away from the outcome, and you just want somebody to come to work. You come across as wanting them to sign up for some type of prison sentence. There's usually a wound or a place of scarcity underneath this. Nobody approaches all this pushiness or does it from a place of wholeness. We tend to force things as people because we want to prove ourselves in some way. If we're using the staffing example, maybe you want to prove that you're capable and competent of running a unit professionally. Or often we're still trying to prove to our parents that we're neglectful sometimes, some of them, not everybody, or absent, that we're worthy of their love. Or we're trying to convince a bully on the playground, like, yeah, you might be 35 and sitting in a professional setting, but the child in you wants to tell that bully that you're cool enough to really leave alone. We chase anything that looks like or feels like it will give us the external validation that we have been craving our whole lives. And emotional wounds, despite our best efforts, are usually not passive. They are active, they are strategic, and they are extraordinarily convincing. They will attach themselves to your job, to your relationship, to your deal, to your title, Mr. Manager, that tells you that this specific thing that your entire future depends on and that you're focusing on will make you whole. But the truth is, you're not chasing the opportunity. You are always chasing the feeling that you have decided that opportunity would give you. And those two pursuits are not the same things. Attachment wounds in particular, things like the fear of abandonment or rejection or being overlooked, produce behaviors that bring us the results that are the opposite of our intentions, of those things that actually create connection. For example, have you ever been in a relationship with someone who really desired your presence and your fidelity, but they went through your things all the time, or they were always eavesdropping on you, or where you at, what you're doing, what's going on, and eventually that neediness is what pushed you away. Often, when you are holding too tightly to anything, it slips right through your fingers. Researchers have long established that anxious attachment behaviors, things like the clinginess, the excessive reassurance seeking, the constant need to know where you are, the hypervigilance, and sometimes it hides behind things like being concerned about you or your safety. But what they do is they produce the more distant responses that they were hoping to prevent. And it presents as a character flaw, but it's really not. It is a dysregulated nervous system response. And if this is your problem, then it's your problem. The good news is it is also yours to manage. There are three places I typically see people doing this. The first way it shows up is in relationships. They keep having the same conversations on repeat, and those disagreements never resolve themselves. And you keep over explaining yourself to someone who's not understand. What you're doing is changing the dynamics. Sometimes in the dynamics where you're giving more all the time and someone else is giving less, you are interpreting your own exhaustion as proof that you care more rather than proof that the return has diminished, because the truth is they're actually tired of listening to you. More effort into the wrong relationship is not devotion, y'all. It is diminishing return dressed up in a dress or in a suit or something else. Anyway, the second place I usually see it is in people's professional lives. So I've been a nurse for over 20 years. I have a business where I help improve the professionalism and hireability of nurses, physical therapists, physicians who are seeking different types of opportunities. And one of the most common things I see is that these very smart, very well-educated professionals mistake visibility for value. And they always think if I just show up harder or louder or more perfectly, then people will see me the way I need to be seen. And often the way that they come across, and unfortunately they have no one to actually observe them and tell them this, but they're coming across as very desperate. And desperation translates in a way that doesn't usually yield the outcome that you want. Also, when you're always trying to prove yourself, please understand you can't excellence your way out of an environment that was never built for your excellence. So I don't care how good you are, if you're doing all the wrong, putting on this show in places that just don't have the soil and the sun and the water to nourish your path, you're wasting your time. Those who have a tendency to focus on a specific vehicle, a specific person they've decided will help them, a specific job they've decided is right for them, a specific position that they've attached themselves to in their minds, are usually the most disappointed because they are entirely too connected to an outcome that may or may not even be the right fit. And they begin overproducing, over-explaining, doing too much, and ultimately turning people off. The most important thing I can teach you today is that letting go is not the same thing as giving up. I believe neuroscientists, which is a relatively new field of research, relatively, but I find it very interesting. It shows that emotional dysregulation, which is a state produced by fear, desperation, control seeking, actually impairs the prefrontal cortex. That is the exact brain region responsible for sound judgment and strategic thinking. What does that mean, Kristen? It means, quite simply, you cannot think clearly from inside a very tight grip. The tighter you hold, the less clearly you can literally see. There are many cultures across this world that very effectively embrace the concept of detaching from specific outcomes. So you can be completely involved in a process and remove the need to influence or determine the very specific outcome that will result from your efforts. And this is a very strategic, very effective move. I've learned that this is how outstanding physical performers are able to stay in the moment. You exert your best effort, lose the attachment to the actual outcome. That's different from establishing goals, but the neediness, the clinginess, the tight grip that you have on how an outcome should specifically unfold is no longer your problem. You're releasing the pressure, the anxiety, sometimes the confrontation of ideas and of people. What you're trying to force through pressure, you could also draw out through presence. And so these are opposite strategies with opposite results. What do you do if you see yourself here and this type of behavior has become your daily practice, your habit? There are 3 things that I'd like you to begin today that will certainly help you to push past this. The first is to ask yourself honestly, think of the situation that ails you at this moment. At what point did my pursuit shift from being energized to being anxious? Once you understand your diminishing return threshold, you no longer have to revisit that point. You just have to be willing to take an honest assessment of that situation. At what point did these people stop calling me back or not want to be in my presence anymore? The second is to stop the excess. Stop that 4th follow-up. Stop the unsolicited explanation. Stop performing your value for people who have not asked for a demonstration of it, or in more personal circumstances have not earned the right to it. Hold it with confidence. Allow it to be yours without having to give it away. And then the third is to redirect all of that energy that you've been forcing and putting into this idea of what you think you should be or what you should have, and pour it into yourself. This is where I see my my clients hit the gym, learn to apply their makeup better, take a class. I have some excellent classes, but they don't have to be mine. Find a new hairstyle, get more physically active, travel more, spend more, do the things that make you feel good and that result in you actually becoming a better person. Because when you become so full and so focused and so purposeful on yourself, on genuinely improving, you actually find that you will stop needing the outcome that you were forcing. And that is not indifference, that's not giving up. That's actually, in my opinion, the most sophisticated power move that will ever be available to you. The line between being a problem and solving a problem is sometimes very, very thin. And it's very difficult to see ourselves. Most people cross that line without noticing because their intentions are good and their wounds are so loud and so real and they hurt. And the clinginess, the forcefulness temporarily makes you feel safe. But you can't override the law of diminishing returns. That principle is not one to negotiate. There is a gift inside of this truth, though, I think. The moment you stop being the source of resistance in your story is the same moment that things begin to move for you. Not because you have forced them, though. It is because you have finally gotten out of your own way. So I urge you, stop pushing and start becoming. The right things, the right people, the right opportunities, the right outcomes are not hiding from you. They are literally just waiting for you to get out of their way so that they can find their way to you. Anyway, I hope that this message has been a blessing to you. If it has resonated with you, I encourage you to join the Violet Vision community. You can find me at www.thevioletvision.com. And in the meantime, trust the pruning process, as I always say. You be blessed.